I have turned on live transcription, so if you need to turn on the captions, you can do so at the bottom of your screen. My name is Rachel Fisher. For those of you who don't know me, I am the Member Services Librarian for Technical Services at CCS. Today, I'm going to review the EDI Workflow functions in LEAP that are available with version 7.1, as well as the functionality that is missing and still requires the client. Like last week's session, I will begin by reviewing the list of functions that are available in LEAP and what still needs to be completed. I'll be interspersing the use of the Find tool throughout my demonstration. The demonstration will include the EDI workflow from the point of importing on order records. I will use the 970 field to add the records to a PO in bulk. And then I'll review the purchase order and demonstrate features that can be edited. I'll release and send the PO and edit and pay an invoice. So last week, I covered the fiscal year, fund, and supplier records. If you have not seen the recording yet, it is available on YouTube. And you can email me and let me know if you haven't seen the link. The slide has the information on it from last week, but I won't be reviewing what I previously covered. This week, I will be just reviewing the EDI workflow. So at this time, purchase orders and invoices cannot be created manually, so only EDI functions are available. On-order records can be imported to LEAP using Express Import, but the import profiles cannot be significantly edited yet. You can edit the display and pack settings and the record set settings. Purchase orders can only be created automatically from record sets using the function to bulk add titles to purchase orders. Since invoices cannot be created manually, only EDI invoices can be paid in LEAP. However, it does not include ASN or EDI processing for partial shipments yet. So if you do receive partial shipments using the EDI processing tool in the client, you will need to use the client to process the invoice when the final shipment has been received. There still is some crediting functionality that is missing from LEAP. At this time, credits can only be applied in the header charges section for a specified amount. The option to credit a full invoice or a line item has not been added to LEAP yet. And on these slides, I've also included links to the acquisitions course, as well as to the handouts, or to the web pages, I should say, for importing records in LEAP, bulk adding titles to the PO, and editing and paying invoices. So after this webinar, I'll be sending these slides out to you, and you can access the links in order to review the instructions and practice doing these functions with the exercises in the course. So I'm going to stop sharing this and switch to LEAP. One moment. Does anyone have any questions about what I've covered before I begin the demonstration? All right, I'm going to go ahead and begin the demonstration. Okay, so today I've logged in as if I'm at Evanston because I'm going to be using a on-order record file from Evanston. and I will be importing their file with 970 fields so that I can take advantage of all the features of bulk adding the titles from the record set. So to begin, under the Utilities drop-down menu, you will find Mark Import. There are some changes that have been made to the Mark Import so that when you click on a profile to look at it, it doesn't pop up. It's all been integrated into the same page, so it has separate tabs to navigate to the settings in the profile in the same way that the tabs appear in the profile and leap, but it's all on one page. So I'm going to scroll through this and find the profile for Evanston. And here's one that we can use. I will use the EVK acquisitions bibs for EDI suppliers. So as you can see here, all of the settings except for display and pack on the bibliographic records tab have been grayed out. That's because only the options for express import are available. But if you do need to change the record set settings, you can do so before you import anything. So right below the list of profiles is the button to select a file. So I'm going to click on that and press browse. One of the good things about having Leap in the web app is that you can place your file anywhere on your computer, and it doesn't have to be on a USB drive or the network drive. So I'm going to just click on this Mark file and press open. You can load as many Mark files at a time as you want. So I'm just going to use this one from Evanston and press continue. And at the top of the screen, we have our import button. You can press import to import the file. So once the job has been processed, Mark import will close. And you can find the import report by clicking on utilities and then pressing cataloging processing. They have put two different reports in cataloging processing. There's a bulk change report for bibliographic records and the Mark import report. So I've clicked on the Mark import report, and in the first row, you can see my file is still pending. So I'm going to press refresh, and it is running. So it might take a bit. So we can pause for any questions. If you have any questions while the file is being processed, please do type it in the chat or unmute yourself. It's still processing. It's taking a bit of time. And now it's been completed. So to open it, we can just click on the first row and it opens up the PDF file. It does take a bit of time to compile the report and open it. One moment. Okay, so I know many of you are familiar with the import reports. They are the same in Leap as the client. You can access them by looking at both queues. Both queues will display the same information. So at the top of the import report, we have our settings from the import profile. And then on the third page, it begins to list every record and has messages on whether the tags were retained because there was a duplicate or if there were any errors that were encountered. And then when we go down to the bottom, we can see the names of the record sets. We can see that 28 records were added to the final record set, and there were 7 provisional records that were saved. So I'm not going to take the time to review the provisional records today, but I am just going to open up these final record file to create the purchase order with those 28 records. So the Find tool will open if you press Find at the top of the screen. I'm going to select record set and just search for the name of the record set to open it. So in our record set, we have 2 different actions drop-down menus. The actions for book adding to a new purchase order are in the top actions drop-down menu. You can book add it to a new purchase order or to an existing purchase order. If you choose to book add to an existing purchase order, it will open up the Find tool to find the purchase order. So I'm going to book add it to a new purchase order because I've logged in as I work at Evanston. The owner has defaulted to Evanston. And we need to first add in a purchase order number. So one of the things about Leap that is still missing are the links drop-down menus for the acquisitions records. Because of that, you do need to copy the purchase order number so that you can search for it in the Find tool in order to open the purchase order. The other thing that is missing is the ability to select a purchase order template. I didn't find purchase order templates too useful myself because all it would do would basically allow you to pre-select a supplier. So you do need to select a supplier. And since I am using Evanston, I'm going to have to add in some filters to find a supplier. So I will select the owner and then use the EDI filter to search for all suppliers that are for EDI accounts. And then I'll press apply. The filter symbol turns green when the filters are applied. And I will just search for all supplier records for Baker and Taylor. And we'll select one of these, the adult CLS supplier. So the next section is going to be familiar to you. It is the same line item defaults that you need to select that you did in the client. And these are important in case there's anything missing from the 970 field. So I've selected the material type of book new and adult fiction for the collection. And for the fund, I will choose, let's see, I'll choose this Crown Adult Books for 2022. And I'll add also in a list price of 1 cent in case their price is missing from the 970 field, and then press continue to create the purchase order. So there is this odd error message that appears Innovative is aware of it. It does not affect how the purchase order is created. It's just a rogue error message. So now to find this purchase order, I have to navigate to the Find tool again. Click on Purchase Order, and then just paste in the purchase order number to open it and press Open. Okay, so does anyone have any questions on what I've covered for the process of bulk adding the titles to the purchase order before I move on? Feel free to type it in chat or unmute yourself. Brenda asks, if you don't use filters for the supplier, does every single supplier come up? It can be helpful to use filters to narrow it down because every single supplier does come up. If you type in, let's say if I were just to type in baker and didn't use the EDI suppliers, then all of the suppliers for baker could come up. If you have like non-EDI accounts or EDI accounts, both will appear. So like if you have standing order supplier records for Baker and Taylor that are separate from your EDI supplier records, both of those will appear in your list of results. And Matt asked if I'm going to show the lines. Yes, I will be providing a demonstration of all the details that are in the purchase order and the line items. Are there any other questions? Okay, so this is a purchase order. The purchase order has 5 tabs. So the first one is the details tab. This is the same information that you'll find in the purchase order in the client. If you needed to change the supplier, you could do that by pressing the Find button and searching for a different supplier record to add to the purchase order. And you can pretty much edit everything that you'd be able to do in the client, except when there are functions that are missing. So on the line items tab, you will see all of the line items that have been added to this purchase order. And you can click on them to open the line item records. So it always opens up to the segments tab instead of the details tab. And so this is a bit different than in the client, because in the client, you will see the information on the details tab and the segments tab on the same screen. But in Leap, they're on separate tabs. So on the details tab, there is the bibliographic information and the price information. So if for some reason you found that the wrong ISBN was added to the record, you can click on Find and find the new ISBN and add that to the record. If you have a discount rate just for a single book, you can add that as a % into the discount rate section and then press Save. So that will alter that to the % after you've pressed Save in the discount price. And if you need to edit the segment, you will have to click on the Segments tab. Press the checkbox and then press Edit. So here you'd be able to edit the quantity, the destination, collection, and fund. There's also a Notes tab for the line items, Instructions to Suppliers tab, and a Claims tab. Brenda asks, under the Details tab on the purchase order line item in the client, there's a drop down for the ISBN that gives the full ISBN that I usually choose. Will there be a drop down for the ISBN in LEAP? I think at this point, all they're going to be allowing is for you to click on Find to open the Find tool and search for the bibliographic record in order to select it and add the ISBN. So when you click on the ISBN, oh, it does look like it. Oh, never mind. I thought it would just be the previously typed ISBNs, but I do see that it has this drop down and you can switch to the ISBN 13. But I can't click on it anymore. So I think, let's see, I think you have to still open it, select it, and then you can click on the ISBN field and it will drop down for you to select the correct ISBN. So you have to press the Find button first. Are there any other questions about purchase order line items? Kelly asked me to repeat what I did to get the ISBN dropdown. Yes. So what you need to do is click on the Find button first. It's selected the record, the bibliographic record, and then press Open. Then you can click on the text box and the ISBN dropdown will open. So you can see the ISBN 10 and 13, and there's some other ISBNs below here that are a bit different. So I'm going to press Close. I'm going to save the changes first and then press Close. And move on to the Charges tab. So on the Charges tab, you can add the discount that is supposed to be applied to the whole purchase order. You can add sales tax, and you can add charges and credits. The discount is applied as a percent, so I'm going to add in a 10% discount. And then it wants you to save it after adding in the discount. And to add any additional charges, you're going to press Add Charge. So in the Add Charge dialog box, we have the options to add cataloging services, other service charges, shipping, and special handling. And I meant the credits were added to the invoice, not to the purchase order, if I said that already. So if I wanted to add shipping already to the purchase order, I'd be able to do that. But I know many of you probably add those types of charges on the invoice and not in the purchase order. So I'm not going to add that charge yet. And I'll remove that discount, press save, And so there's also instructions to a supplier tab. I'm not sure if any of you use that, but that is an option. And there is a claims tab for the purchase order. So are there any questions about the tabs on the purchase order or the line items before I send the purchase order? Yes, we can go back to the line item. Do you have a specific question, Brenda, about the line items? Yes. So Brenda is asking if we can change the amount of an individual line item. So I'm going to click on the line item to open it, and it will land on the Segments tab. To edit the quantity, click on the checkbox for the segment and then press Edit. And in this quantity box, we can change the quantity. I'll just change it to 2. And then press Save. Should I do that again? Okay. I'm just going to do it again for another one. So this is another segment that just has 1 quantity. So I'll click on the checkbox again, press Edit, and change the quantity to 3, and press OK. And then save it. Are there any other questions? Okay, so the next step is to release and send the purchase order. So if you open up this Actions drop-down menu, you can see that we have Release, Send, and Delete. So I forgot to mention how to delete line items. So that's fairly easy to do. I'll just go over that before I send it and backtrack. You would just need to click on the checkbox for a line item and press Delete. And it asks if you're sure you want to delete a purchase order line item, and you can press Continue. So you'd also be able to delete the whole purchase order if you needed to. But for now, I will release the purchase order. And this will open the dialog box asking if I want to generate the on-order item records. So I'm going to press yes. And the payment options dialog box opens. It asks if you want to pay on receipt of the invoice or prepay. So I know most are paid on receipt of the invoice. So I'll press continue. So that order was successfully released. Now, when you open up the Actions drop-down menu again, you will see the option to send. I'm going to click on that, and that will send the EDI order to the supplier. So there will be a dialog box asking if you're sure you want to transmit the order electronically, and then you can press continue, and it will have this green message at the top saying that it has been transmitted electronically. Are there any other questions? Okay, so I am going to move on to invoices. Since we cannot create an invoice manually today, I'm going to have to look for any library's open invoice in the system that has already been received but not paid. So to do that, I'm going to click on Invoice in the database drop-down menu. I don't have an invoice number since I don't work for a library right now. And this is pretty old data anyway. So I'm just going to look for the invoice status of open. And we'll see if Evanston has any open invoices in the training server. And I'm using the filter to find Evanston's invoices. And we have 3 open invoices that are EDI invoices that have come in. And I've opened this one up from February. So this has the 4 tabs that you're pretty familiar with from the client's views. On the details tab, we have the owner and supplier information, and it has the invoice details related to the EDI file. You can edit anything that is not grayed out. On the line items tab, you will find all of the line items. I have heard from a library recently that they received something on an EDI order that was like a line item for something they never ordered. So if you do need to delete a line item because you never actually ordered it for some reason, you can click on it and press delete. This one is linked to the purchase order, so it won't let me delete it. So I do know that like right now you don't have the option to unlink anything, but in the client, you would be able to unlink a line item from the purchase order. There's also the charges tab, which has the cataloging services and shipping charges on it, and a payment history tab. I was playing around with this so that you can see I had paid the invoice and then reverse payment. So I'm back on the line items tab and we'll click on an invoice line item. So like the purchase order, the line item has separate tabs for the details section and the segment section. When you open it up, it opens to the segments section. And the details tab really looks the same as the purchase order line item with the bibliographic information, the price, and a discount rate. So for EDI invoices, you probably don't need to do too much editing of the line items, but in case you do, in case you have other memos that you get, like discount rate memos after the fact, you can add that in and press save. Or if for some reason you needed to change the fund, you can change the fund. So you would just open that up by clicking on the checkbox and pressing edit and choosing a different fund. And then press save. So most of that is pretty much the same as the purchase order and line items. The charges tab is a bit different. You have the ability to add in the discount for the whole invoice or sales tax. And here's where you would probably want to add in the charges if they were not added, or credits. So One of the issues with Leap for version 7.1 is that you don't have the capability yet to credit a whole invoice or a whole line item. The only way to do that in Leap is to use the header charge section to add in a credit amount. So I've selected credit, and you can select any of the funds to credit it from. So let's say Evanston has cataloging services, and they did something wrong. So they're going to give you a credit for $5 because of their label errors. So you can add in the credit for $5 to the processing. So we'll do book processing for the fiscal year because they printed out labels wrong, and press OK. And that actually saves automatically. You don't have to press the save button for that. And if you needed to delete a charge or credit, you can click on it and press delete. And that also saves automatically. Are there any questions about invoices or invoice line items? Brenda asks if we can manually add an invoice line item to an EDI invoice. Not yet. Unfortunately, only the automatic processes are available. So the manual processes will not be created in the 7.2 upgrade that will be available over the summer, but will actually not be available until the fall. So the next upgrade will give you additional crediting functionality, which will be good to add to Leap sooner rather than later. And then sometime over the summer, sometime over the fall, we will be able to add in the manual functions. Are there any other questions? All right, so the next thing is to pay the invoice. This is under the Actions drop-down menu. You can open the Actions drop-down menu and press Pay. Type in a voucher number. You can change the date if you need to. And then pay the invoice. So if I click on payment history, I can see that this was paid today. You can also edit the voucher number if you needed to by clicking on it and then clicking on the row and then pressing modify checker voucher. You'll be able to change the number and the date. And if you needed to unpay the invoice, that is also under the Actions drop-down menu, and you can press undo payment. So this has undo the payment, or has reversed the payment, and you can see that on the payment history. Are there any other questions? All right, I do want to do one more demonstration in the Find tool of SQL searching. So I know that's very important when we are close to the fiscal year rollover time in order to make sure all of the invoices have been paid. So one of the things I noticed that was not added to the database drop-down menu yet is purchase order line items. So right now, we only have the option to use the saved SQL queries for invoices and purchase orders. I'm going to click on purchase orders in the first drop-down menu. In the mode drop-down menu, I can select SQL search. And then when you click on the word unsaved, you can open the drop-down menu and see the saved queries for purchase orders not canceled or closed, or purchase orders not invoiced. So I'll choose purchase orders not invoiced. So to open this up and edit it, you have to press this downward pointing arrow. And then you can open it and update the destination org ID. And I'll just leave it as 45 for now. See if there's any purchase orders not invoiced. And then press search. So we can sort this so that we can see that there is a purchase order that's partly received as top. You might want to take a look at it and see what's going on with some of these invoices. So we can see that this one just hasn't been received and invoiced yet, so that's fine. And close that. And we can do the same for invoices. So I've selected invoices from the first drop-down menu, SQL search, and see that we have the saved query for invoices not paid or closed. To edit this, I need to click on the downward-facing arrow. And here the organization ID number needs to be changed to your branch code, and then press search. So we can see down at the bottom, there are 2 open invoices that still have not been paid yet. Are there any other questions or any requests for further demonstrations? We have about 15 minutes, and I can demonstrate something again if you'd like. Feel free to email me any questions that you have that you think of via the help desk. I'd also really appreciate it if you fill out our survey. I'm going to send you a link to that survey. Well, I was going to get the link for you now, but let me see if I can find that. I'll post that in chat in 1 second. Matt asks, we haven't started acquisitions yet. Do you always start with a MARC file from the supplier? Using the MARC file from the supplier is the most efficient way to create purchase orders. If you can set up your grids with the supplier so that the data is output to the 970 field. So this includes the fund, the code for your item template, the price, the quantity, and so when this is added to the record, all this data is then automatically added to your purchase order line item when you bulk add it to the purchase order with the process that I demonstrated today. And the benefit of doing it with the 970 field is that the item template code can be output to the 970 field from your vendor, and that will help you to automatically create the item records so they match to the right item template. And this also helps because there are just so many item templates that you might need to use for the different collections and material types that you might have more than one for each collection and material type. So it will identify that correct item template and help you to create your item records efficiently so that you don't have to create them manually. It really streamlines the process and saves a lot of time. One moment, I'm trying to find that link. All right, here is the link to that survey. We'd really appreciate hearing from you on any ideas of how we can improve our training. I'll send that out again after I have uploaded the recording to YouTube. Is there any other questions? Okay, so if any of you out there have not used acquisitions yet and you want to get started and plan how to make that transition from manual acquisitions to electronic ordering, please do contact me at the help desk, and we can set up additional meetings or training sessions to review the processes of how to make that transition. Or any other questions that you might have. So at this time, if there's no other questions, have a great day.